Good morning. Welcome to a workshop focused on how to be a volunteer at Finance North. We know that many of you have have experienced our school before, and for some of you who are joining us in this recording, not in the live session. This will be your introduction to understanding the role of volunteers and what are some of the expectations and strategies that we can offer you so that you'll have a great experience at Finance North as a volunteer. So there are a few things that I would like to ask, and let me first say that we have followed all the COVID protocols. We've got the doors open and the windows open, and it just makes it easier for us to have our masks off so that you are able to hear us better. For those of you who are parent volunteers with us, we are hoping that you received a copy of this handbook, which is the volunteer handbook that we've designed. If you haven't, then Ashley will put a copy of the PDF in the chat. And if I can ask you to please keep your mics on mute during the session and make use of the chat function. If there are any questions that you'd like to ask or any comments, it helps us to know what you're thinking so that we can respond to that. So just to give an overview of this hour, we are going to look at some of the general expectations of being a volunteer at Finance North. And when we say a volunteer, we mean that if you are here for a short period of time, if you are coming for an overseas teacher exchange, if you are a student teacher who is on their journey to becoming a teacher, if you're someone who's just interested in our school and what we offer, and what is our ethos and our culture at our school, then this is the recording that we are asking you to watch, and it comes with the handbook that we providing you with as well. But to bear in mind that some of what we are sharing with you today is just a snapshot, and many of the parts of this experience will only make sense once you are with us and as you journey along the way. So then we are going to look at what are some of the learnings that we've had from a teacher who's had a volunteer in the classroom. So we're going to invite the teacher to join us for the session. We will also have Hayley joining us, who's the learning support teacher, and she will speak to some of the ideas that she can give you in terms of how you can help children and also support the teachers. And then we've got a volunteer coming to speak to us about their experience, as well as some children. So we've tried to create an hour where we've got different stories of what it means to be a volunteer at school, and we're hoping that it gives you a good overall picture of volunteering at Finance North. So we can go to the next slide, please, Ashley. So Chanel and I are going to just highlight a few parts that are in this PDF that you received, and we are looking at some of the general expectations of what it means to be a volunteer. So I'm hoping that you've got your PDF, or you've had a read through it, or if you haven't, then use this opportunity to now listen first and then go and look at some of these aspects a little bit more deeply in the PDF. Okay, so Chanel, so you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Chanel Katia, Head of Learning Support, and would also normally look after the volunteers when they visit the school. Finance North is amazing at welcoming volunteers. I think that's not something that you would see at every school. So our parents or other people also are offering to volunteer. And to volunteer at Finance North, I think the first one that I highlighted was the great expectations. Because when you want to volunteer, I think it's not something that you come in and do half-heartedly. It's something that you go out full out because you are passionate about it as well. And a lot of our volunteers has started a career in education or learning support or any of those things for being in this space. So our first one that I've highlighted in the book was the great expectation, because we as teaching staff or any staff at Finance North, including the volunteers, we set high expectations for ourselves because we believe that that is the education that the kids need and the support from us.
Mm.
So if we set these high expectations and goals for ourselves, then that means we can be the best versions of ourselves for the kids who really need us.
Yeah. And what I think is important around that is that when we talk about high expectations, we don't mean high expectations in the sense of perfection.
No,
Yeah.
not at all, because that's not realistic.
So the high expectations is about expecting success of the process of being a volunteer, and that includes being open to learning, being open to the fact that there are going to be moments where you're not sure what it is that's required of you, but there are those that can help you problem solve. So having high expectations for solutions.
Yes. And also going above and beyond, I think, because when you have a volunteer or learning support, I've got specific role or job description, that it does not stop there. Anne is not only the principal. When you see her outside, she's busy mowing the lawn or looking after the animals. So it's also just going above and beyond and not being just in the classroom, attending only to that class, but also just being observant and looking at what is needed around you.
Yeah. And then the next part you were going to speak about is think if you're a volunteer, what is our relationship with parents and guardians at the school? That's important for the volunteers to also understand.
We work together as a team, so it's not the teachers at school and then at home. It is we all work collaboratively, because we're all very important role players in a child's journey or people's journey here. So that's why we all work very closely. And even Anne, with this school, is that first name, we talk to a parent not as Miss or Mrs., but on first name.
Yeah.
Just to make it more informal and part of the family, because we're all family and community.
Yeah. And it's an important part to mention, because if you volunteer at the school, you have to know that there's a relationship of the parents being a part of the children's learning. So even though you don't physically see the parents at the school, you need to know that the teachers value the relationship that they have with the parents. So we don't separate out the child's life outside of school time as something that happens that's separate. We incorporate what is happening in the home environment. We rely on the relationship we have with the parents to be able to support the children better. Yeah. And then talk to us a little about the next one, wellness matters.
Yes, wellness matters. I think if we look at the first one, the great expectations, the setting those goals, thinking outside the box, readjusting what your goals were, making it realistic. The wellness matters also then, because we need to look after ourselves to be able to look after the rest that we do support. So that's very important. So it's also that in the book it talks about your weather affects others.
Yeah.
So if you are a thunderstorm, and we all have those days, that we feel like a thunderstorm, and when we used to have staff meetings, so there's a mirror in the staff room where Anne would say, when you walk past the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror, and that's what others see. So I think it's just looking after yourself and realizing I'm stressed. I need to talk to someone. We do offer that at school, because one of the other things also said you are stretched and stressed. Because that's the fast pace also that we work at. So it's just looking after yourself and making sure that if you're having a horrible day, that's fine, but not to affect others by that.
And I think that that's an important recognition, the fact that we have high expectations in terms of commitment and bringing yourself, being open to how you can get involved in school. And at the same time saying, we know that sometimes takes a lot of energy. We recognize that can sometimes exhaust you or make you feel a little bit like you are unsure of what the next step is. But the key thing is, when you volunteer at the school, to ask yourself when you arrive, who is part of my team to help me manage the high expectations? So if it's a student teacher, it would be the person who's in charge of the student teachers. So it's not always the same person, but I think that that's a really good way to think about it. So if I'm arriving at school and I feel a little bit like a thunderstorm, who do I reach out to so that I can still fulfill the expectation that has been asked of me? So when it comes to volunteering, that's a really important thing to remind yourself of when you arrive at school. Because if you don't do that, you step into the space where there are requirements for you. You're looking after a group of children, or you are taking children outside to go and do an activity with them. But you are taking that weather with you as you go, without being aware of how you can go and read the weather patterns with someone else helping you to problem solve. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we put discipline down on the slide because it's not that we expect our volunteers or student teachers or anybody who's working at our school as a visitor for a period of time to be responsible for discipline.
Yes.
We put it on here and it's in the handbook as well, because we believe in the discipline approach that we have in our school.
I think coming in for a volunteer, not knowing that this is what we follow, it can look different. For me, coming from a different school, was if someone does something, you give writing out, whether you're a volunteer, the TI,
Yeah.
that is what you do. So it's just looking at the ethos of the school and seeing what does inclusion look like? If someone plays with a fidget toy, we don't take it away and, get it at the end of the day or bin it.
Yeah.
So it's just looking at it differently and looking at the habits and how can we make use of the habits. That's another workshop.
Yeah.
And then also just supporting the act.
Yeah.
Is catching people doing
the
right thing.
So it's those differences of confronting what has been your experience with discipline, and then not using that as the measurement for how you work with discipline at the school, because that can be something that creates lots of speed bumps when we have volunteers or student teachers at the school, because we emphasize catching people doing things in the right, and that includes staff and it includes children. We also speak about the children having being aware of their rights. So if a child sees something that doesn't fit well or meet our culture, they reach out and they ask a question. And those are some of the things that we celebrate here, that children are able to speak up and ask. And I think in traditional ways, that's seen as something that's not acceptable.
Cheeky.
Yeah, cheeky or not acceptable. Yeah. So I think if we look at the rest of it, I don't think there's anything else that we really want to emphasize now, but maybe Chanel, before you switch over, as the learning support coordinator, what would you say to someone who's going to volunteer at the school is something that if they were asking, just tell me one thing that you think I need to remember?
I think it's to adapt, to change. Anything can change very quickly. So it's
and that
and
is
outside the box thinking.
And I think that for me would be one of the key things to have in your toolbox. So when you get out of the car in the morning and you say, who do I rely on to help me with my weather pattern? Then you answer that question for yourself, because it's always going to be different depending on what kind of a volunteer you are. And then how am I working with adaptability? How am I adaptable? Because with our culture of every adult is responsible for every child, it means that if there are needs of the children at the school need someone to be the receptionist for an hour because the receptionist is responding elsewhere, then you might have thought that you were teaching a reading lesson and you've come with your reading books and you've been waiting for that opportunity, but you might arrive and then be asked to host the desk. Or if you were thinking that you were going to come and you were going to use this as an admin day, but you're actually doing a live workshop, then you've just got to be adaptable, right, Chanel? And
look at your weather there.
Then you look at the weather, you go and do a weather test, and then you come into the space that you needed it. Okay, great. Thanks, Chanel. And I think now we are going to move on to Candace.
Okay.
Is she here? If she's not here, we can start. We can go on to Haley. Unless I'm on the wrong part of the program.
No.
Yeah. So what we're going to do in this section now is we're going to have a conversation with a grade 1 teacher who this year has been a part of a volunteer. They've initiated a volunteer program of parents being involved, and we've seen how Candace could give input into how volunteers might be able to learn from what they've done this year. And I'm going to ask Jackie to put her camera on as well, and then Ashley, can you spotlight Jackie as well? Jackie, while we wait for Candace, can you maybe tell us about your role at the moment for this volunteering program? Okay, I've done it.
Okay, can you see me
Yeah.
and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, so my child was in grade 1 with Candace and sort of birthed out of the idea of having parents volunteering around playground duty and traffic support duty in the morning, and realizing that the grade 1 parents and grade 1 teachers were doing full-time this year. The kids were back 5 days a week, so they were quite stretched. So we explored the idea of doing having volunteers in the classroom, where normally maybe a teacher assistant might be helping out, but now the teacher assistant is running a class on their own. Sort of where were the gaps that parents could fill in, or just be an extra pair of hands in the classroom space. So we got various parents to volunteer, and Candace put together with her team a list of sort of hours in the week that they felt would be helpful to them, because the whole idea is that they should benefit from it. And yeah, so where we as parents could come in and give a little breathing room for them in the classroom space. So it was helping with PE sometimes, and Afrikaans, and a reading period, and art and stuff and things like that.
Great. And this has now been a model or an example that we've taken some of the parts into the volunteering program going forward. And Candace has joined us now. So thanks, Jackie. You can stay there, but maybe just mute yourself for now, and then I'm going to ask Candace to come in. Hi.
Hi.
I really thought you weren't coming, and I was going to suddenly have to transform into a grade 1 teacher. Which I must admit I'll be complete about, but not for long term.
The great honors of visiting us today.
Okay, nice.
It was in the pack up, helping everyone pack up moments. That's
Yes,
where
no, it's fine.
fun.
So I'm just aware of time, but Candace, you had shared with me, you and Jackie had shared with me some of the aspects that you've learned from this process of having volunteers, and the kinds of learning that can help support volunteers who are going to come and work at our school. So bearing in mind that this recording is going to be available not only to parents who are volunteering, but actually student teachers or our exchange students from overseas, what are some of the things that if you had to identify important parts, what would be some of those?
So I think as teachers, we've got lots of things that happen in our school that is confidential, that we are only aware of, that we don't even share with some of our colleagues.
Okay.
So I think confidentiality of whatever the students or the parents experience in the classroom, because they're going to find out things perhaps about the children themselves, or maybe a child's going to have a bad day and open up to them about family circumstances.
Yep.
So I think just that confidentiality is very important. And if things like that happen, then it's important to let the teachers know what they've experienced, so that if we need to support the child or anything like that, then at least we are aware of it.
Yeah.
And then we can also check in with the children and see how we can.
And you've touched on an important point there, because we had spoken about it earlier. When you arrive at the school, always ask yourself the question, who is my team in my volunteering role? So who is it that helps me to understand what I need to do? Might be a different person to the person that you're actually working with in the classroom. So you've touched on something now that speaks to when you are in the classroom working with the teacher, and something comes up that's related to who's in that environment, then the teacher's the person that you connect with around that, and how you hold that information in terms of confidentiality.
Absolutely. And the teachers don't necessarily need to know immediately. So not necessarily go and call them and say, oh, this is something that's just happened.
Yeah.
But they might need to calm the children down or things like that. And if that happens, then when the teacher comes back, they can easily say, can I chat to you for 5 minutes? I just want to share with you my experience that has happened. And then obviously they do that in a quiet place or setting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then something else that you
So also empowering the parents for being able to be in front of a class, you know,
Okay.
like us as teachers, I find it always so fascinating when we study, we don't get enough of classroom management. We don't get enough of how to deal with different types of needs in the classroom. So I think just empowering the parents of maybe the grade, letting them know when someone is very anxious and they have anxiety, how do they calm the child down?
Yeah.
Or if somebody bursts into tears or doesn't have a pencil, for instance, what does that look like? Because each grade is different.
Yeah.
Obviously in grade 1, if they don't know where to find a pencil, then we go through the process.
Yeah.
But hopefully by grade 2 and 3, they know where to find their pencils.
So there's diversity in classroom management depending on the grade that you're in.
Yes.
But again, coming back to what you said, being confident enough to step in and be available for stepping in. Because in the previous session when we spoke about the role of a facilitator who's employed to help a particular child, that's different to a volunteer. So the facilitator is there to support the learning, but a volunteer actually is given the space to get involved in different places. So really working through the barrier of that discomfort of being very present in the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also think establishing firm boundaries, you know, that's also very important. We all want to be friends with the children, and we are as teachers. However, the children also know with us when it's teaching time and when it's we can be their friend and they can confide in us, or you can play jokes with them. But I think a tip is when I became a teacher, one of my colleagues who was already a teacher said, we don't smile till March.
Which is a terrible thing to say, and we don't want you to do that. Yeah. But you have to be the background to that, because it's true. Because what happens is we want to be successful as teachers. We want to be recognized, and we want the children to feel comfortable and to like who we are.
Yes.
But sometimes that means that balance doesn't necessarily work out well, because the children do need the structure of understanding the different roles. So you can't on one day arrive and you're the smiley friend, and then the next day you arrive and you're the disciplinarian.
Yes.
It's about being consistent. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you don't want to be interrupted while you're talking, so that could be a perfect example of saying, well, guys, when you want to get your teacher's attention, how do you get your teacher's attention? And then someone will let you know. Normally it's raising a hand.
Yeah.
And you say, well, that's great. Can you please do that with me?
Yes.
So you're already setting those sort of boundaries.
No, that's great.
What you would like with them and what you don't like with them.
And so you're finding the balance of what is the rules and the routine within that classroom environment, and then how do you use those to make sure that that relationship is also clear. And when you've had volunteers in your classroom now with grade 1, did you have different people at different times?
Yes,
Okay.
we had different teachers, different parent volunteers at different times. So it was like for sport, for PE, for art, which was wonderful is that, like, for managing classes as well, you also go towards what you would like to do.
Yeah.
So we had parents come in that like to do art, so then they came in that period to help with art.
Okay.
We had parents who enjoyed the sporting side of school, so then they came in that area.
Yeah.
So I mean, if parents are a bit nervous, then come and help in the beginning in the areas that you are comfortable in and would enjoy.
Yeah.
But what's nice is having those extra hands where if you were busy with one thing, then they were able to assist the other children that might not know where to get the page.
Yes.
Or, oh, what was the instruction again? Can you remind me? You know, so it was lovely to have that volunteer in the classroom to help with that dynamic.
And what did you notice that the children gained from having a volunteer or student teacher or a different adult in the room?
Yes, yes. So obviously with one teacher in the classroom, in grade 1, I can only speak about grade 1 right now, is that they would really like your attention. So then we teach them a lot of patience. So as each child is important, they have to be patient while you're helping another. And with that parent volunteer being in the classroom, it was helpful that they didn't have to wait so long.
Okay.
Especially if it's fine work and, you know, detailed work that they need more one-on-one instruction.
Yeah.
Or what was nice is that a parent volunteer could be outside with the children. I remember in our one Afrikaans lesson, a parent actually helped the children get herbs out of the classroom that they could put on their picture, so they're adding a different sensory feel to. So that was nice to have someone that could help with that.
Yeah.
And then it also gave me a peace of mind that I didn't have to move inside, outside, just to watch the
have
children.
another person in terms of supervision.
So it was also a calmness knowing that that parent was fine with the 8 children outside. And
Amazing. Jackie, I'm not sure if there's anything else in your role of coordinating volunteers that you want to come in with now, or anything that you want to pick up from your experience that you'd like to ask Candace about as well.
Yeah, there's just 2 things that come to mind. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the first one is just like, I love the idea of collaboration, and you guys really, my experience at the school is that has been taken very seriously. And I found as a parent volunteer, when I was stuck, I could always just ask the children, which is a very new way of me engaging in an education space. It wasn't what I grew up with. So in the beginning, I felt like I had to have all the answers, and I didn't, because I was a volunteer and new. But actually to say to some of the children, oh, so what does your teacher do in this situation? And some of the children could tell me, and then sort of we could problem solve together. So I think stepping into that collaborative role with the children was a big learning for me and was very helpful. And then the other idea or other thing I just wanted to share was just, I mean, I'm wearing a parent hat, so this might not be relevant to all the volunteers that come to the school, but just really to engage with my own child before I enter into the classroom space, just so my child is clear on why mom's there, what can they expect from mom, mom's going to come and then go, you know, how's our relationship going to be in that space, and just to chat through it beforehand, so that my child is secure in why I'm there, and it doesn't cause unmet expectations on their behalf, or so those are just 2 things that were helpful for me.
That's great. And we appreciate that, because I think, you know, as a parent, you can speak to what are the kinds of things that you need to think about, or what are the things that you've learned in knowing that your children are also at the school, and how do you respond to those kinds of things, because we are constantly learning about how do we make sure that the experience is good for everybody that's involved, and that includes your own children, if you are parents at the school, because you're coming in and you're playing a different role while you're here. So thanks, Jackie. And Candace, thank you to you. We're going to move on to Haley now, who's our learning support teacher. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your morning with your switching from grade R's and okay, and then can we go to the next slide? But while we go to the next slide, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Haley Holton. I'm the learning support teacher.
Yeah, sorry.
And we're going to talk over a big
noise
that's
coming
coming
out
past.
Yeah.
So I'm the learning support teacher, so I'm part of the learning support department, and I work throughout the school in the different classes throughout the grades.
Okay.
Yes.
And so when you said you work in the different classes throughout the grades, we're looking at some images here now of you working. This doesn't look like you're in a classroom. So, I mean, I know what you're doing, but those who are going to be watching this recording or with us here today, some people have never experienced our school before. So when you say that you work across all the grades, what does that look like on an average day?
So I have a timetable that I follow, but there are many times that we divert from it, as we've spoken about flexibility. But I am there to support the children that are needing some extra consolidation or further extension. And so I mainly take out individuals or small groups of children And we find a space in the school. We do have a room in the hall. We also have spaces sometimes in the passage, sometimes outside, like in the picture. And for foundation phase, I often help with sort of phonics or reading groups.
Okay.
In the senior phase, I sometimes help with maths lessons or whatever it is that they need consolidation within the class. And then during assessment times, I'll take children out to do assessment support, foundation phase and senior phase.
Yeah. And what I've appreciated about the role that you play, it means that you've got a lived experience of how to support children to meet requirements, but also how do you invite different ways for the teachers to teach so that the children can learn.
Yes.
So it's not only this extraction model of the child can't do it in a way that the teacher needs him to do it, so how do you take them up and fix them so that they can? But you're also working directly with the teachers, because if you're taking a group of children out and you're doing maths with them, there's a method that you're using that suddenly shows the child's learning that is different to when they're in whole class. So you're in a partnership with the teachers as well. And how I found that beneficial is in all of our workshops, I am limited because I'm not in the classroom. So I'm offering advice and techniques from my position, but you bring in strategies and ideas based on you and your lived experience of still being in the classroom with the different grades and the benefits of you are working across the school. So you're seeing where children are going to, where they're coming from, and what are all the different options. So it's really like a magician.
Yes.
With different tricks in their bag all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
On that note, you're here to share with us some tricks for anybody who's volunteering at our school, based on what you've learned because of your skills and because of your expertise of working in the Wellington Lab.
Yes.
Okay.
So firstly, I would say communication. Be prepared with the expectations of what the teacher is going to need from you. I heard Candice mention it. You obviously need to be on the same page. What is the goal for the lesson or the class? What is it that you are actually going to be required to do as a volunteer? Obviously, you need to have some kind of goal in mind when you're going in.
Yeah.
Classroom management, get in touch with what, every classroom teacher, every class has a different set of, rules that they've made up, sort of agreements that they've agreed on.
So when you say classroom management like that, that's so crucial that classroom management is not universal.
No.
Because classroom management is always defined by who's in the classroom.
Yes.
So what are the ages? What grade are they in? Who's the teacher that's working with them? Where have they come from now, 20 minutes before this? And so they've been on break and now they come back. So it's a different classroom management strategy of how do we come back and transition into learning, or vice versa.
Absolutely.
So how then does a volunteer who comes in, and today they volunteer and they're working with grade 4s, and then the next time they come they're working with grade 5s, but they know that they're in the intermediate phase. When you said a really good point about getting to know what the classroom management is in that environment.
Yes.
So what are the kinds of things to look out for then to understand what the classroom management style is?
So basically procedures. When you're handing books, what is the teacher, do you hand them in a specific place? Do you hand it in a certain time? Your point system, you might have in a foundation phase class or in a senior phase class. Some of them have dojo points, some of them have individual or group points, so that you know how to reward those points as well. So that you keep consistent with the, so it can be discipline, it could be setup or structure of the lessons or the classroom procedures.
And that's an important thing. Classroom management is not a synonym for discipline.
No.
It's not a clever way of saying, because we don't want to say the word discipline. Classroom management is, what are the rules in the classroom? Not the teacher's rules, but what are the rules for anybody who's in the classroom? And systems. What are the rules and what are the systems? And it's about giving yourself the time to observe those, and then learn what those are, and then collaborate with them.
Absolutely. So there's consistency. Yes.
And then the next one?
I would say visiting, having some sort of experience or an idea, even if it's chatting to the teachers from previous grades, and also the grades that they're going to. So if you're a grade 3 volunteer, you want to kind of get an idea of where they're coming from and where they're going to, so that you can help children in the class. If you're assisting the children, you can help consolidate skills that they possibly already know. You have an idea of where they should be. Vaguely, obviously, every child is on their own journey, but understanding where they've come from will help you to consolidate with the skills they should know. And then again, also for children, they need to be extended or can go a little bit further, sort of where they're heading into the next grade.
And the way that we answer that when someone says like, how do I find that out? We run workshops.
Yes.
And some of our workshops are particularly focused on that, understanding how the curriculum is put together. Not just saying this is what the grade 2s do, so you're volunteering them, but
Yes.
understanding the overview, which is exactly that, where the children come from and where they're headed to.
Yes.
So if you've been given a group of children that you're doing reading with, to understand that at this stage, they are expected to be able to read independently by
Yes.
themselves,
Yes.
rather than assuming that they are, and actually that's not what they're doing in this grade.
Yes.
So trying to look for opportunities that the school offers for you to get a better understanding of what stage should they be at now, and then recognizing what can I do to either help them get to that stage, or they've already ticked all those boxes, how do we create a space for them to be extended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then
My third point
Yeah.
is also get to know the learners in the group that you are going to be volunteering for. You know, you'll get to know, and like you said, teachers are magicians. We have to learn very quickly the tricks that we need to pull. Some children might need, sort of another instruction. So the teacher's already explained the instruction, and you know that this child in particular might need a little bit of extra attention in terms of getting started, or needs the instruction given again. Maybe it's a child that actually that day just needs to be heard. Maybe it's a child that loves to chat, and in a group setting that can be difficult. So they'll often look for another adult in the class that they just want to tell their one story to.
Yeah.
Or so you can be that person. Once you get to know the children, you kind of know what the individual needs are,
Mhm.
and then you can cater to that. It's quite difficult for the teacher, obviously, to manage a class on your own and get to hear and see to every child's individual needs at all times. So you can be that extra person, that extra ear, that extra pair of hands, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And recognizing that you might jump in on this day and you experience a child in a particular sense on that day. And that you need to also bear in mind that this is what you're seeing today, but there's actually a whole picture that you're not aware of as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So being sensitive and mindful of those.
Yeah.
children.
And then you said 5 helpful things, but
I didn't put this one on, no, but of course.
yeah, because it's like you didn't want to show your magic potions.
I didn't want to share it beforehand. I didn't think anyone
I
was
was
reading that. I
thinking,
made my own notes. So there is a fifth one.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Appreciate
pick some. Just 1 more minute.
Of course, it's the last one, most profound. Each one teach one. So
Okay.
every adult in the class every child has their own skill and own unique gifts. So every volunteer will come with their own strengths that they get to share with the teacher and with the children.
Yeah.
It might be that you can teach more than one language and you're able to help with different languages in the class. It might be that you come with a technological background and you might be able to help, again, teach the older child in this area. So everyone's got a gift or a talent that they are able to share, and trust me, in a class of 30 kids, you'll be able to find a way of using that.
Yeah,
skill.
exactly.
So,
And share them up front, because we'll just rope you in. And then suddenly before you know it, like we are you, that's the theme for the term. So
we'll probably employ you too.
exactly. So we'll be having the employment workshop after this.
After this one.
Okay, great. And what is to reiterate again that we offer these workshops on an ongoing basis, and there will be lots that will happen in term 1 as well, to speak to how we can develop classroom management. How can we understand how to help children with their individual needs? How do we know what this grade means in relation to the grade that's coming, or in relation to the grade that's already been? So it's not that we're saying this is what you have to do, and then we say now go off and be amazing.
Yes.
We are going to offer more opportunities for you to learn about that, and then to also say that even if you aren't able to be a part of workshops or what we are offering, it's about going, what is the thing that I'm going to focus on at this point? Classroom management, because this is what the teachers asked me to do. Or saying, in this class, the teacher actually wants me to work with individual children. What are the things that I need to learn in order to do that?
Yes.
Because you're not going to need all of these 5 magic tricks that Nelly's shared with you today at the very same time. But just giving yourself a little bit of freedom to work out what is it that would best benefit the space that I'm working in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, Haley.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks.
But I think you're coming back just now when we have some grade 5s talking to us, right?
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Chad, come and join us. So yeah, you can take your mask off because we are in the open spaces.
Thank you.
Second,
Thank you for having me.
it's Chad's first time on the virtual space, and I'm so excited about it. And the reason why we've invited Chad was he is one of the freshest volunteers at our school at the moment. And so, Chad, just to give you some background, we are recording a session, as well as we've got people with us in the live meeting as well, about what are the expectations and how to be a volunteer at the school. And so we've included you because you've lived through it, and you now are going to be more than just a volunteer in the future. So that's also something to put out there, that volunteers don't ever stay volunteers. They end up becoming something else at the school. So Chad, tell us a little bit, let's go through it step by step. What was your relationship with the school when you started here? How did you come about being here?
Firstly, thank you for having me.
Okay.
It's lovely here. Firstly, I'm actually friends with one of the deputies,
One of the staff members,
his staff members.
Yeah.
And I've known about Finance North as being a prestigious school that offers a lot of opportunities for young kids. And recently we made aware of the inclusion factor of it. And coming from my background, where I've taught in China for about 4.5 years, it would be a good experience for me to try and figure out what happens in South African schools. How do they operate? What's their modus operandi? How do they go about their day? But more importantly about Finance North, how we can find different cultures from not only in the staff, but in the kids as well.
Yeah.
So from my experience in China, it was all about maybe one culture, one type of nationality.
Yeah.
But in South Africa, as you know, we are so diverse,
Diverse,
so
yeah.
multicultural.
Yeah.
So getting to know not only staff members, but kids from different walks of life, and seeing that through the education scope, it just made me so much interested in volunteering this particular school as to other opportunities.
Yeah. And then when you started volunteering here, what were some of the shocks to the system?
Firstly, the dress code.
Okay, tell us.
So actually, I first came in the first 2 days. I came in, shirt,
Blazer.
blazer at one stage, formal shoes I haven't worn in about 2 years. So, and coming around, I'm seeing some of the teachers in tops and shorts, and very comfortable.
Yeah.
And I thought about it for a bit, because I thought maybe it was the first day, maybe it's just
Maybe it was the silliest day at school.
Maybe, you never know. And then came Tuesday, and then came Wednesday, and then came the whole week. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's some trend coming here, and I'm definitely overdressed for this place.
Yeah.
But then getting to see the characters behind the clothes that are being worn, you kind of see that there's a radiation part of it that comes from the character through the different teachers,
Yeah.
how they dress. This film is a great example.
Yeah.
It always has this colorful dress code that she has, and that kind of exudes her artistic background.
Yeah. And also the way in which that includes people's individualism,
Absolutely.
rather than it also just being everybody conforming to a
Yes.
particular kind of dress code. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for me, being out of the country, so I'm coming back and seeing such a fresh, such a dynamic and a modern way of presenting yourself in the classroom was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And then the pace of the school, or finding your way around the school, what were some of the things that you relied on in order to settle in and become more comfortable in the space?
So firstly, with regards to communication, everything was there that needed to be known. Everything was there for me. So when I came here, it was more about, okay, I need to find out what I need to do, because obviously as volunteers, you never know exactly where you may be. You may be classroom, you may be assisting with one-to-one learners, you may be assisting staff or admin, doesn't matter. So finding out what you need to do is important to be able to carry out the task.
Yeah.
And Finance North gave me such an incredible scope of different things that I was able to do. And the staff was so friendly and welcoming and approachable in telling me where to go to find, because I obviously don't know the school from above. So
yes. Yeah, but I mean, you're touching on that. This is why it's important that you're here. I mean, we didn't even decide on the questions before the time, but I had a sense of to understand some of the expectations of volunteering at a school, you need to speak to someone who's volunteered, rather than us just giving you the rules. Because the way in which you describe when you first start, you're given a broad experience. So
Absolutely.
it's not saying, okay, you're here to volunteer with grade ones, so then it's closed in and you only spend time there. You're able to explore the other parts of the school to understand how that grade one classroom fits in with the rest of the school's environment.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about it is that I got to experience almost every grade throughout my volunteering times. And you get to see the different personalities, different teachers,
Styles.
doing what they do best, performing their magic, and also seeing how the different ways that they run the classroom, how they interact with different learners, and that being so dynamic. And the one thing I loved the most was that it didn't feel mundane. It didn't feel, oh, it's the same thing, doing the same thing different day. It is more about, oh, what I'm going to do today, what I'm going to do tomorrow. And it's that kind of excitement, that kind of adventure. Even though they give you a scope of where you're going to be, you are so excited for the different things you're able to experience and show.
Yeah, that's great. So we've got 1 more minute now before we have the grade fives join us, because they're going to speak about their experience of having a volunteer in their space. If there was one thing that you would say to someone who's going to step into the school as a volunteer, what would you tell them?
Be ready to learn and also be ready to experience, but
Okay.
also be ready to show a reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I feel that everybody here appreciates individualism, and from the kids staff, you showing what you can offer, not only in your work but in your character. I think that is the most welcoming thing I found at this school.
I feel like we could do an interview with Chad for an hour.
Wow.
Chad, thank you. And okay, so now you've got it back in the story by telling us. So you started off as a volunteer and now?
And I'll be teaching grade 5 next year.
Wow, a teacher intern in grade 5 next year. So thank you, Chad, and to all of those who are listening. Be careful, you might be coming, you might end up starting as a volunteer and then becoming the principal of the school. So we look forward to that. Thank you, Chad. Enjoy the rest of your day. And now we are going to get the grade 5s into the space, but I'm going to move away from the camera so that they can sit here. Grade 5s, give me a second. Come in.
Sure. Yes, just. Okay.
So that you get the experience. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so grade 5, you can see on my laptop there, that's the slide that everybody's watching. Can you see it? But this is the camera over here that they are seeing you through. Okay, so you can look there or you can look there. It's entirely up to you. But what's happening at the moment is we've got people listening who are live in the Zoom room with us, and others who are going to watch the recording to hear about what it means to be a volunteer at Kaizenstop. So you here to talk a little bit about yourselves being grade 5s and how volunteers help you in the school, or what you understand volunteers to be. Okay, so Ms. Halton and I will ask you some questions, and at the same time you can also share some ideas without any questions, but maybe start by introducing yourselves.
So I am Nicola Landry.
Mm-hmm.
Hi,
Okay, so can you first tell us, what is a volunteer?
a volunteer is a helper who comes to school.
Okay. Okay.
What is a teacher? Tell us what a teacher is.
A teacher is a person who teaches you things and help you learn.
So yeah, so maybe somebody else now can answer the next question.
Okay, so I was going to ask, what do you think a volunteer and a teacher, do you think they can work together? And if so, how?
I mean, like, they work together to like make sure that we get all the things that we need. Like, the teacher will be teaching something, and then the volunteer will probably go out to the classroom and get like the Chromebooks or something if we're working online.
Okay,
And
amazing.
sometimes the teacher is marking assessments or making something for the class, and then the volunteer will teach.
Or like invigilate for the exam.
Yeah.
What do you think would make a good volunteer in the class? What do you think they would need to do or be?
a kind, helpful person who
Okay.
likes interacting with others.
Ah,
They kind of need like kids.
they need to like kids. Baby goat kids or just children.
I mean, like, hopefully children.
Yeah.
Cool, good.
And when these volunteers are in your classroom, how do you understand your role, like as the children in the classroom?
To
What-
listen to them and interact with them.
Okay.
Yeah. And to kind of treat them like they're a teacher too.
Okay, and that's a really, really good, what you've said now, really emphasizes what we were saying earlier about the fact that the children at the school don't treat adults separately or differently or exclude them because they aren't the main teacher. Did you want to add something on that?
No, I was gonna say.
What they said, okay. And then if you had to, we gave you a job now, okay? This is the last question now, each of you are gonna have a chance to speak to this. If you had the job of welcoming the volunteers at the gate of the school, and they said to you, I'm coming to volunteer at the school today. I'm very, very nervous because I don't know that I can do this. What is something, one or two things that you would like to offer them as like advice or like a gift that they can take with them so that they can be amazing as volunteers? You can start, would you like to start first?
They must make the learning fun.
They must make?
The learning fun.
Okay, yeah.
They want to interact.
So you would say to them, listen, don't worry about getting lost in the school. It doesn't matter if you walk into the wrong classroom, just be there anyway and make the learning fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like they should also, I would probably tell them that they should relax because like most of the kids at our school are like really nice and they'll like if you can't find wherever your class is, then you'll just like you can just ask like almost anybody. And then also to make the teaching fun, but also make sure that we're learning stuff and that we understand.
Okay, great. Just tell us a little bit more about the difference there. Making sure that the learning is fun, but also making sure that you help us to learn and understand things.
Because like I know some people when they don't understand something, they don't always ask.
Okay.
Like they don't always ask because they feel like I don't know. They like sometimes they won't ask. Like they won't be like I don't understand. They'll kind of just sit there and try to figure it out by themselves, which is good. But also, sometimes you need to just like check on.
Okay, so in other words, try and be a good observer so that you can notice who needs help, because some people don't feel that comfortable with asking. Okay.
Yeah, and also it's okay to be shy. You'll find your place very soon.
Okay, great. And you don't even have to leave that shyness behind, right?
Yeah.
Because shyness belongs here as well. If shyness needs to be here. Okay.
Wow,
Wow.
great answer.
Gosh, amazing. So what were you doing now in the classroom?
We're doing a STEM project.
Okay,
Yeah.
exciting. So we're gonna let you go back to that amazing project now.
We're actually on break.
Okay, go enjoy break.
Okay.
Thanks for taking up some of the break time. Okay, so we have reached the end of our session and it looks like it's 11:30 on the dot. We hope that this session has offered you a wider picture of what it means to be a volunteer at school by listening to the different members of our team at Finance North, including the children who were amazingly brilliant at the end with no preparation whatsoever. So if you walk away feeling like, gosh, that was a lot of information, I'm not even sure where to start, then I would say to you, just watch the last 5 minutes. Because if we think about volunteering at our school, if the children are able to sit and speak to you and tell you that comfortably about the fact that you will find your way and that they will help you along, then there's no reason not to sign up as a volunteer at school. And also then it gives you another opportunity to trust what we're offering so that you can meet the expectations of what it means to be a volunteer at our school. And we wish you all the best for the rest of your year, and we look forward to seeing some new volunteers walk through the corridors in 2022. Thank you for coming.